You know what's fascinating? If Niccolo Machiavelli walked into our world today, he wouldn't be writing manifestos or building a social media empire. No, he'd be operating in the shadows, pulling strings so masterfully that people would think fate itself was working in his favor. While everyone else is screaming for attention online, he'd be winning through complete invisibility. And that's exactly what I want to talk to you about today. Not some recycled quotes you've heard 1,000 times, but the actual psychological warfare tactics that would make Machiavelli unstoppable in our modern world. 21 rules that would turn him into the puppet master of our digital age. See, here's the thing about human nature that hasn't changed in 500 years. We judge with our eyes first, our minds second. Control what people see, and you control everything they do. So let me walk you through exactly how a master manipulator would dominate today's world. First rule of psychological dominance. Let everyone think you're smaller than you are. I know, I know. It goes against every instinct we have. We live in a world where everyone's desperate to prove themselves, flash their credentials, show they're the smartest person in the room. But think about it. When was the last time you prepared for a threat you didn't see coming? Machiavelli would walk into any room last, not first. He'd observe everything before saying a word. And when he finally spoke, it would be something nobody expected, something that shifted the entire dynamic. By the time people realized what just happened, he'd already won. Here's the beautiful part. When people think you're harmless, they show you everything. Their weaknesses, their plans, their fears. They have no filter around you because you're not a threat in their minds. That's when you strike from an angle they never saw coming. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. In our hyper-connected world, truth doesn't spread. Perception does. Machiavelli understood something that most people miss completely. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but very few people ever experience who you really are. So he wouldn't waste time proving his integrity. He'd spend every moment building the perfect illusion. Picture this. He's sitting in boardrooms, smiling, being completely charming, while simultaneously planting seeds that will grow into exactly what he needs them to become. He'd make enemies feel comfortable, feed them false confidence, disarm them through pure likability. The goal isn't to be good, it's to be believed as good. You don't need honesty, you need persuasion. Don't correct people's perceptions of you. Exploit them. Let them crown you the hero while you quietly rewrite the ending to your story. Most people fight desperately to be understood. Machiavelli would do the exact opposite. He'd leave people guessing constantly. One day he's cold and distant. The next he's generous and warm. Sometimes completely silent, other times intensely focused. Not because he's confused, because they are. And here's why this works so well. Confusion creates obsession. When people can't figure you out, they become obsessed with trying. They analyze every word you say, overinterpret your silence, study your patterns. They start orbiting around your mystery, trying to solve a puzzle that you're constantly changing. You're not just a person anymore. You're a fixation. And the people you control most are the ones who think about you most. So stop over-explaining everything. Stop clarifying your position every time someone asks. Leave gaps in your story. Speak in riddles sometimes. Smile when they ask questions you refuse to answer. Because confusion breeds curiosity, and curiosity becomes gravitational pull. In a world where everyone broadcasts every move they make, Machiavelli would move in complete shadows. Think about it. Everyone's building their personal brand, posting updates, sharing their progress, showing receipts for everything they do. But the second people see how you operate, they start preparing counter moves. So what would he do? Keep his results public, but his methods completely private. He'd appear transparent while hiding every mechanism that actually matters. You'd see what he accomplished, but you'd never understand how he did it. Don't reveal your strategies. Don't explain your systems. Don't tell people what you're building until it's already built and functioning. Let them think you're moving slowly while you're actually 3 steps ahead of where they think you are. Here's something every master manipulator understands. Perfection is forgettable, but controlled flaws are addictive. So you build this perfect mask first. You become confident, poised, intelligent, completely calm under pressure. But then, just once, you let it crack slightly. Maybe it's a sharp word that reveals hidden depth. Maybe it's a calculated vulnerability that shows you're more complex than anyone realized. Maybe it's a sudden burst of insight that makes people think, wait, there's way more going on here than I thought. Why does this work? Because people don't obsess over what they completely understand. They obsess over what feels just out of reach. Give them 90% of your story, then go completely silent. They'll chase that missing 10% for years. Be the light most of the time, then flash just enough darkness to make them wonder what's really behind the curtain. You'll become unforgettable, not because they loved the mask, but because they glimpsed what was underneath, and now they need to know more. When people talk too much, they reveal everything: their weaknesses, their desperate need for validation, their fear of being misunderstood. But the person who speaks with surgical precision and stops before explaining too much, they dominate every conversation. Machiavelli wouldn't speak to be understood. He'd speak to create distance and control. In negotiations, disagreements, moments of tension, he'd say one sentence, maybe two, then let the silence do all the heavy lifting. And that silence, that's where real fear begins, because now they're projecting. They start thinking, what does he know that I don't? Why isn't he reacting? What's he planning next? You've said almost nothing, but they've written an entire thriller novel in their heads with you as the mastermind they can't outmaneuver. People today are obsessed with knowing where everyone stands, who's on their side, who's against them, who's safe, who's dangerous. Machiavelli would never let them feel that certainty. He'd have dinner with enemies, compliment rivals publicly, defend people he was privately planning to replace. When people think you're dangerous, they prepare for war. But when they think you're neutral or even friendly, they sleep peacefully. And the best time to make your move is always when they're sleeping. So you compliment your competitor's idea right before you outmaneuver them. You agree with your critic right before you quietly replace them. You appear completely passive until your absence becomes a weapon they never saw coming. The easiest way to remove someone isn't by fighting them directly. It's by making them believe you're completely on their side. You want them to succeed. You're rooting for them. You're not a threat at all. Machiavelli would study their patterns, mirror their language, praise their ideas, and disagree only softly when necessary. He'd never make them feel like they were losing. He'd make them feel like they were teaching him, guiding him, helping him understand. And once they felt completely safe around him, he'd move decisively, quickly, cleanly. By the time they felt betrayed, he'd already be sitting in their chair, and they'd still be confused about how it happened. If Machiavelli wanted to control someone, he wouldn't threaten them. He'd help them in ways that slowly, silently created dependence. He'd teach them something nobody else could. Solve problems nobody else would touch. Provide stability they hadn't earned on their own. He'd become irreplaceable without ever asking for recognition. And then, when the moment was right, he'd simply withdraw. Not in anger, not with revenge. Just absence. Because nothing destroys people faster than the sudden removal of something they've grown addicted to. You create a void by making them lean on you, then you take your hand away mid-step. They won't hate you. They'll hate how much they need you and spend years trying to fill that space. Most people offer help because they want to be liked. Machiavelli would offer help to create leverage. When he gave you something, he wouldn't let you forget it. Not through force, but through presence. You'd feel indebted. You'd feel the psychological imbalance, and that imbalance would ache until you started paying him back. You offer someone a shortcut, a solution, an advantage they couldn't get elsewhere. Then you pull back slightly. You don't ask for anything directly. You just let that imbalance sit there until they start paying you back in loyalty, favors, information, or simple submission. Favors, when used with patience, become psychological chains, and the longer they stay unacknowledged, the heavier they feel. People think loyalty comes from kindness, but Machiavelli knew better. The best way to make someone loyal is to get them to compromise something for your benefit. You don't force betrayal, you simply allow it. Let them tell you something they shouldn't. Let them break a small rule in your favor. Let them speak badly about someone else to win your approval. You never ask, never pressure. You just leave the door slightly open and they walk through it themselves. Now they're tied to you, not by admiration, but by complicity. People protect the things they've compromised for. When someone betrays others in your direction, they're investing in you. And the more they invest, the less they can afford to lose you. Machiavelli wouldn't attack alliances directly. He'd dismantle them through erosion. He'd identify the strongest bond in any group and slowly infect it with suspicion. A comment here, a question there, a carefully planted seed of doubt. I heard he said something about you. Have you noticed how she never really defends you? I'm not saying anything, just watch how they act around you. You don't need to destroy the alliance yourself. You just make them destroy it themselves. Once trust breaks inside a group, the whole structure collapses without you throwing a single punch. Want someone to obey you without realizing it? Make them feel seen, but only in ways that confirm their deepest self-doubts. Not with insults or criticism, with soft, carefully timed observations. You're really brave, especially for someone who's not used to this kind of attention. You always seem to pull through, even when people don't take you seriously. You're doing great, even if your confidence doesn't always show it. These statements trigger agreement from their pain. Once you've anchored yourself as the person who truly understands them, they attach emotionally. They defer to your judgment. They begin moving under your gravitational pull. In every betrayal, every difficult decision, every ruthless removal, Machiavelli had one golden rule: never be the one holding the knife. He'd orchestrate outcomes, whisper ideas, influence decisions, but never be in the spotlight when things got messy. When someone needed to be removed, he'd make it seem like they were never really loyal to begin with. When a rival needed to disappear, he'd let them self-destruct with just the right amount of provocation. When chaos needed to happen, he'd feed information to both sides, then step away before the explosion. If you're seen as the executioner, you gain enemies. But if you're seen as the natural alternative after someone else fails, you gain followers. You orchestrated everything, controlled everyone, but nobody can prove it. In any room, the most powerful person isn't the loudest. It's the one who says nothing and observes everything. Silence is a weapon disguised as passivity. In our world of constant noise and digital chatter, Machiavelli would win by becoming the one person who doesn't broadcast everything. Someone insults you? You say nothing. Someone asks your opinion? You smile and let them keep talking. Someone tries to trigger an emotional reaction. You blink, stay quiet, offer no response whatsoever. That silence forces them to speak more, and the more they speak, the more they reveal their doubts, intentions, and weak spots. You don't have to interrogate anyone. They'll tell you everything just to fill the space you've weaponized. Machiavelli would never be erratic, but he would be unreliable in critical moments. If people always know when you'll respond, they control the tempo. If they know how you react under stress, they'll plan the provocation. If they know you'll always take the high road, they'll walk all over it. But if sometimes you forgive and sometimes you disappear, if sometimes you engage and sometimes you watch them implode, they'll fear you. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're unreadable. The person they can't predict is the person they can't prepare for. To dominate psychologically, you don't need to always show up. You need to make them feel your impact when you're not around. You become the standard, the reference point, the shadow in every conversation they have. They second-guess their choices because of how you used to correct them. They can't fully celebrate wins because they wonder what you would have done differently. They don't trust others completely because they remember how precise your judgment was. This is psychological branding based on energy, not content. You imprint your presence through how you behave when you're in the room, measured, observant, controlled, surgical. So when you're gone, they don't forget you. They compare everyone else to you. Threats create resistance. Machiavelli never needed to say, "I'll destroy you." He let others wonder if he might. That wondering, that psychological pressure, is far more damaging than any words. You don't say, "I could expose you." You just pause when they lie and watch them squirm. You don't say, "I'll ruin your chances." You make one strategic call, then say nothing else. You don't say you're finished. You simply disappear from their world and let them panic about what you might be doing. Fear based on imagination is more powerful than fear based on information. Once they fear what you might do, they start working for your approval just to avoid finding out. Machiavelli didn't believe in quick retaliation. He believed in watching, waiting, letting the offense rot until the timing was absolutely perfect. When someone wronged him, he didn't react immediately. He studied them. He let them relax. He let them believe they'd gotten away with it. And then one day, when they least expected it, he moved. Clean, calculated, absolute. When you react instantly, you let the other person set the tempo. But when you delay, they live in paranoia. They can't enjoy their victories. They can't sleep soundly. They fear every quiet moment. And that fear does more damage than any outburst ever could. Machiavelli never wanted to be liked. He wanted to be essential. Not because of charm, but because removing him meant removing the entire structure. Stop being just a name. Start being a network, an idea, a standard, a strategy embedded in how others operate. Train others to think like you. Make yourself essential in systems nobody else understands. Embed your voice in decisions that echo long after you're gone. So even if they don't want you around, they can't function without you. This is how legacies form. You aren't just feared while present, you're remembered in systems they can't delete. The ultimate form of power isn't recognition, it's haunting. Machiavelli would be the person others reference indirectly. You know who I mean? Don't end up like him. You know how that move played out last time? They wouldn't say his name because even naming you feels like invoking something bigger than they can handle. You don't trend on social media, you linger in minds. You don't win arguments, you change atmospheres. You become the one they fear bringing up because everyone else in the room already knows the consequences. If Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't be shouting online or looking for followers. He'd be hidden in power structures, shaping narratives behind smiles and silence. He'd be the voice in your head saying, "Don't respond yet. Don't reveal everything. Let them speak first." And most importantly, he'd never chase respect. He'd position himself so that others couldn't breathe without giving it to him. That's how you win in the modern world. Not with fame, not with noise, but with a legacy they can't stop thinking about, even when they desperately want to. These 21 principles aren't just tactics, they're a complete psychological framework for operating in a world where everyone else is playing checkers while you're playing chess. The question isn't whether these methods work. It's whether you have the patience and discipline to use them properly. Because once you understand how to move in shadows while others chase spotlights, you'll never need to fight for power again. It will simply flow to you naturally, inevitably, like water finding its level.